for a person that's not in a relationship, the most important thing to do is improve your relationship with yourself. Whereas I think some people with relationships, when they're in them, they're so focused on the other person that they forget about themselves. There's no reason not to meditate. I think it's just allowing yourself to be a complete beginner and just try it. Like if I can get a person to be comfortable to say no, to say this is who I am, I'm not going to edit myself, I'm not going to hold myself back and play small. That's everything. You're always fixated on meeting everybody else's needs at the cost of your own. I'm going to just say, look, fuck you, I'm going to put myself first. It can't be like that, because then you're going to create that cycle of resentment.
Today's guest has been through a very tough self-discovery journey, getting diagnosed with depression and coming very close to suicide. At a time, fitness and exercise helped him cope with the issues he was facing. He studied psychology as a student, but after graduating felt like it wasn't enough because the degree was mainly focused on theory. He wanted to help people with the things that they were really struggling with. Later down the line, Ruairi developed an online program that would help people with low self-esteem issues, and ever since he's been helping people to live their lives from a place of authenticity, learn when to say no, and how to have meaningful and genuine romantic relationships. Guys, this is an absolute gem of a podcast. We talk about antidepressants, the way they are prescribed and their side effects, being emotionally disconnected and getting yourself distracted from what you have to work on. We also touch upon how being extremely empathetic can lead to people-pleasing behavior, learning how to say no more often, and what's the main motivation behind Rory's work. I highly encourage you to stick all the way to the end because there's a lot of lessons in this one. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Rory Stewart. You are listening to The Grateful Show with your hosts Pascu
and Bogdan. Join us on our mission to spread awareness around mental health and make people feel happier and overall more grateful.
Each week, we bring you an inspiring guest, stories, and a message that will help you become your best self and pursue your life mission.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of The Grateful Show. Hope you are doing fantastic, and if you're not, you are going to be, because today we have with us Ruairi Stewart. How is it going, man?
Oh, good, man. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
Our pleasure. Yeah, our pleasure. Yeah, just try to be productive all day, and just keep the flow going.
Nice.
It's a pleasure to have you on, and just to break the ice, we're gonna ask you, what are you actually grateful for today?
Grateful for the gym's getting back open. So I'm in the first gym session now in a few weeks and it went really good. I'm just glad I got on and got moving, and it's just nice to be back exercising again.
We tend to not appreciate those little things as much, and I feel like the whole lockdown and pandemic situation has actually made us realize that those things really matter.
Oh, huge. But I mean, even just for self-care, like exercise has been a massive part of my self-care. So even I didn't realize how much I missed the gym until I had 4 weeks without it, like, you know.
Yeah, we are very lucky because here in our country, fortunately, the gyms are still open. So we are grateful for that, because when we were back in London, like how much was it, like 3 months? Yeah. Something like that, without gyms was just horrible. I just remember that I took like 7 kilograms weight. So yeah, back on track now. Unfortunately.
Yeah, like the first lockdown was horrible. I think everybody was trying to adapt and figure out, like, reevaluating their self-care when like your main strategy's been taken away from you, and like, so many people started running. Like I remember when the gym shut, everybody just seemed to be out running like the next day, which was kind of cool as well.
Right, for our audience to get a better understanding of what you actually do and how you came to be where you are now, can you briefly explain that to us and to our audience, please?
Yeah, no worries. So my background originally, I got into psychology as a student. I had misinterpreted studying psychology to be very similar to like counselling. That was my perception of it growing up. I thought like psychology was the same as, helping people through their problems. And it kind of is to an extent, when you specialize, but as a student, it didn't really live up to my expectations. So when I graduated, I just kind of went through a period of trying to find myself and trying to figure out what it was about. But I feel like I had always really wanted to be in a helping role. Like I seen value in making an impact with people and kind of helping them through what they were struggling with. So at the time, I ended up studying in cognitive behavioral therapy, which is CBT. And that, like, it was very transformative for me to learn the techniques and to have an understanding of how it could be used. But it didn't really resonate with me in terms of like as a model and as a method. It's very rigid. It's kind of like A plus B equals C. You know, you do this, you do this, and but you know what I learned further on down my path is like people are unique, people are diverse, and different things work for different people. So the rigidity of that didn't really fit me at that point in time. I kind of went through my own stuff. I've struggled with mental health for years and years and years. I got diagnosed with depression when I was younger, came very close to committing suicide in my early 20s. And one of the big avenues that helped me cope with that at the time was fitness and exercise. So I ended up getting into bodybuilding, I got into weightlifting, I did all the kind of generic man shit to kind of build myself back up. I personal trained for a few years. And what I observed was that the people that were coming to me, the success and the results I was getting was mainly from the relationships that I developed with the clients. You know, there was a lot of safety, a lot of trust. And we got results and we had great crack and good laughs when we were doing it. And I had a moment of clarity when I was living abroad. I was living in Dubai at the time and I was like, I don't want to be in a gym the rest of my life. And I just got a nudge to like connect back to my education, and I just put down a deposit for a course. I didn't even research it. I didn't look at it. And it turned out to be systemic family therapy, which I needed. Like I needed it for myself now in hindsight from what I learned. So it felt like it was kind of a synchronistic nudge that I was going to take something from it. And from that, it just changed. Like it genuinely changed my life in terms of what I learned about myself, but also how it helped me see others and how it helped me help them see themselves. So I then developed a program. I taught people online how to build up their self-esteem, how to understand relationships a bit better, how to let go of patterns that weren't serving them. And then I started seeing clients in person, and then like since then it just kind of took off. And like again, it all came back to the strength of the relationships that was being developed. And you know, I've been very, very passionate about learning new techniques and just trying to help people overcome hurdles. And since I started on social media, I just put out stuff that I thought, what would I needed to have heard when I was younger? What do I wish people would speak more about? And it resonated with a lot of people. Like I have clients all over the world, and it's the most rewarding part of it is seeing them from their day one. And then when they've totally let go of stuff and they've maybe left abusive relationships, or they've changed their career, or they've stood up for themselves for the first time in their life, that to me is everything. Like, I don't know if I really fully answered your question, but it was a bit of a journey, you know?
Yes, you did. I just wanted to get a clear understanding of you. You mentioned that you first started studying psychology, and I wanted to know what was the driver behind that. Did you know, did you have like a proper motivation from within that you wanted to do that? Or did you just choose that because you didn't know any other things that you would be passionate of?
At that age, I was at a bit of a crossroad. So
I'm sorry to interrupt the flow right here, but I just wanted to let you know that we are about to dive deep into Rory's story and a lot of insightful stuff. Therefore, if you haven't already, please just take a screenshot of your timestamp where you are listening, could be Spotify, iTunes, whatever, and just share it on your stories. Tag us at Grateful Show and also tag Rory. You can find his Instagram handle in the description below. We would highly appreciate if you could do that, because we can reach more and more people. Now, without any more pauses, right back to the show.
It was about 17 or 18 years of age, and I had a choice. I had got accepted to the universities that I wanted to study, and I had a choice between law or psychology.
Okay.
And in hindsight, like what I had perceived psychology to be, it was actually counselling. I probably needed counselling myself. And I wanted to be able to hold that space and provide that kind of care for people. And I wanted to be in a role where I could help people. But it's not taking away anything from psychology. Like psychologists are fantastic at what they do. But when you're doing it as an undergraduate, like you're learning a lot about models and methods and research. And it's very much research driven. Whereas like when I think about it now, it would have been nice to like just go straight on to counselling and learn early on psychotherapy. And psychotherapy is really what I'm passionate about, not psychology as much.
Okay.
Both are very similar and they're linked.
That makes sense.
Yeah, Ruairi, I know that most probably had a rough journey, and I just wanted to ask you if you can share with us what was the toughest moment and how you got through it so far.
I mean, so I didn't really allow myself to talk about what I was struggling with, you know, even how I seen myself, the expectations that I was trying to live up to in myself. I was also playing a role within a very, very toxic relationship that wasn't helping me. And I just felt overwhelmed. I felt stuck. You know, the circle of people that I had around me had their own stuff going on. And I don't know if you can relate to this, but when you're used to holding space for other people and you feel that you need to be strong for everybody else, I just tend to take things on. And, you know, I wasn't really coping with things. And at that age, I didn't really have the awareness to deal with stress. Like I didn't go and speak to my family. I didn't offload to anybody else. So when I did cope, it was usually in destructive ways, which could have been alcohol. And then, you know, eventually what happened was I remember being diagnosed or put on antidepressants, and that really didn't agree with me. It just compounded the problem in my experience. And I had also went through a bereavement, a very, very tragic bereavement in my family not too long before when I had hit the lowest point for me. And it was just, looking back, I was just overwhelmed, just very, very overwhelmed and stuck. And I couldn't see a way out. I genuinely couldn't. And it was shit. It was just very, very shit, a very shit period in time. Like, and again, I'm the eldest in my family. It wasn't like I would have allowed myself to go and speak to anybody anyway. And I can see that a lot in some of the clients that I speak to, you know, how they frame their problems. And just at that point in time, I just felt stuck. But I mean, fast forward a few years, like everything did eventually work out. You know, I met my current partner, and that changed my whole fucking life. Like, in every possible way, it helped me be me. It helped me grow into the person that I am now. It's given me fulfillment on a level that I never thought was possible. And that's something that I talk a lot about with relationships in terms of safety and safety within a relational container for you to be you. And I never felt like up until that point in time I had ever really showed the real me. And even from like a man's perspective, you know, I did all the fucking toxic masculinity shit. Like, I went on the kickboxing when I was young, became a kickboxing world champion because, you know, you have to be tough if you're a man. Then I went on the bodybuilding, so I had to look fucking ripped. And then I still wasn't happy. And then, like, it's only been through this journey with therapy that I've kind of caught myself with the story that I told myself about how I should be. And I've actually started to learn, is this me? Is this in alignment with who I am? Is this how I want to show up or how I want to be remembered? You know, it's been a bit of a journey. Like,
you mentioned that at the lowest point, to give to our audience a bit of context, at the lowest point you were diagnosed and you basically had to take antidepressants. And I really want to touch upon this because nowadays, especially with this current crisis, I would like to know your view and your take on the way the prescriptions are given and the way that actually people are treated as being depressed and the way they are handled, because a lot of people are going through a lot of stuff and unfortunately they don't have someone to actually consult with. They might not even be aware that that's the best thing to do. And they are given those medications that are, in my opinion, fucking with their brain sometimes and are putting them in even a lower point. And then from there, really bad stuff happens. So I really want to dive a bit deeper on this and see your take on it.
I mean, I think it's a very, very complex issue. Depending on what the person's presenting with, you know, medication does have its place. I think, like, when you're looking at it from the perspective of how readily it's diagnosed, I think there's a bit of a problem because sometimes when people are struggling, it's access to quality care, it's access to support or therapy to actually get a perspective on what it is that's impacting them, the way it's impacting them, which could be their environment, their relationship. You know, they might not have had the tools to actually see the problem for what it is. There could be loads of different factors that could potentially be resolved by actually having access to a mental health professional. And the thing is, if you go to the GP, and this is not taken away from anything from the work that they do, but if they prescribe you medication, the chances are you're going to need 12 weeks to 6 months before you see a massive difference with the medication, and the chances are it's going to need to be trialed. They might need to increase the dose, they might need to give different types of medication to find that balance, and then you have to factor on how that's going to affect you in different ways between your weight, your appetite, your libido, all those different things, sleep. So you have to weigh it up. Is the side effects worth, what that person's going through? And I mean, it's different for every single person, but one thing that I really liked about CBT that I had learned was, we can make interventions on how we're thinking, how we're talking to ourselves, the types of thoughts that we're having, and learn to challenge it. But on a behavioral level, when we actually make changes to how we're showing up and what we're doing, even if we're not feeling it, it could be just getting up and getting shaved. It could be getting dressed. It could be getting out for that walk, even though you're not feeling it. Just small incremental ones, they lift your mood. But we might never learn that if we're just given medication, because then we're going back into the environment that we were in before. And as I say, like, if it's your relationship that's impacting on your self-worth, how are you going to figure that out if you've just been given tablets? Maybe you have people in your circle that are bullying you and you're maybe not aware. Maybe you're drinking too much or self-medicating. Maybe there's other factors that are compounding why you're feeling. But like, I genuinely think in some cases medication can be life-saving. I would never knock it in the sense of, I think it has its place for some people and some issues, but I think a lot of people get given it very readily, and if they had a bit more support, I think changes could be made a lot faster for them.
Yeah, definitely agree. Rory, I just came across regarding to this a quote like a few days ago, and it was something like, before you self-diagnose yourself with mental illness, make sure you are just on point with your habits. Like, make sure you meditate, make sure you exercise, make sure that you just journal or eat healthy. Do you think that this should be the basic for you in order to have a healthy, like, mental state?
I think it's a good foundation. I think like a healthy body is going to complement a healthy mind, and vice versa. Once you start taking care of yourself and tuning into your self-care, it is going to have a knock-on effect in your mood for sure. If you're eating good and you're moving and you're in a good routine, you're sleeping, you're getting enough hydration, you're meditating, you're in a state of being grounded and aware and present. So that's all positive. But I mean, again, back to your point, if we're not looking at the problems that are compounding on how you're feeling and how you're seeing yourself and the narrative you're telling yourself about your life and your place in it, that needs to be challenged. And it's different things for different people. Like, a lot of people that I meet, they're not really sure who they are or what they want, or maybe they're in unfulfilling relationships and they just feel stuck. They don't know, they maybe don't have that trust in themselves. They make decisions, or maybe they've had dysfunctional behaviors modeled growing up that's not serving them. So there's loads and loads of different ways that changes can be made. But I think, like, back to your point, when you have a good routine, as long as because I can look at it from my perspective, I ate really good and I worked out like fuck, but that was a distraction because it was numbing me to what I really needed to face. So there's a fine line at times, and as men, a lot of men get emotionally disconnected because we struggle with vulnerability. So when I think back then, I was living in the gym. Like, you couldn't have got me out of the gym, and that just prolonged the process. And then when I wasn't doing that and it was getting the boiling point, I was drinking. And sure, it's the same thing. You're just numbing yourself to what's going on. So, like, you have to look at what is it that I'm avoiding. If I'm clinging to this routine but I'm not facing my stuff, or I'm in denial about what needs to change, I think that's something that should be highlighted.
We really talk a lot about this thing on a podcast, and specifically about how all of us, or at least a big majority of us that have the basic awareness, we kind of know what we should be doing and what we are doing wrong, but instead of actually trying to see how we can solve those patterns, those behaviors, those challenges, we tend to really drown ourselves in pleasures and distractions, and really keep our mind away from the actual stuff that we should be working on.
I mean, you have to look at it too from a position of, your brain wants to keep you safe. The brain wants to keep you comfortable. It likes that familiarity. And the thing is, even when we know we should be doing something, there can be loads of different fears: fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of rejection, how they're going to see themselves if this goes wrong. There's loads of different reasons a person won't step out of their comfort zone. And even from a sense of safety, we can only do it when we're ready. People procrastinate for tons and tons of different reasons, but this is the thing about like building up self-trust. We can't throw them in at the fucking deep end first day. We have to look at, well, how can we build this up gradually? How can we start helping this person see their strength, helping them see the things that they are consistently doing and are capable of doing, because the chances are they have maybe got their whole life framing things in a negative or discounting the things that they're actually doing well. You know what I'm saying? And then it's just doing it in stages, getting them to that place then where that scary thing, it's going to be fucking scary, but you're going to go through it. You know, we're not going to avoid it anymore, because all avoidance is doing is giving us more time. It's going to come back later. It's not going to, you know.
You gotta face it.
There was a quote that we shared a while ago, and I think it was very relatable at the moment, is the longer you wait, the longer you wait.
Oh, for sure.
Eventually, you're going to have to face it.
So like I frame it like, if nothing changes, nothing changes. You know, keep doing what you're doing, but you know the outcome you're going to get. And the thing with anxiety as well, it's 1,000 times worse in your mind. 1,000 times worse, because you're suffering twice. You haven't actually faced the situation. And, you know, the more you do it, the more exposure you build up. You then begin to be comfortable. It's like, you both drive?
Yeah.
Remember your first driving lesson?
Yeah, oh, it was awful.
Because it's a relatable thing. Like, you remember, like, who has let me behind a fucking wheel of a car? Like, what are they thinking? But now, like, you're a competent driver, but it took time, it took exposure, and now but we have to frame that to the problem situation that they're facing. You know, it gets a wee bit more complicated when we start looking at, like, from relationships, because if we cope, say, like with people pleasing, if I have a fear of conflict, then maybe my coping strategy might be to diffuse the situation. I'll take fault. I'll see to the other person, make sure they're okay, or, you know, the cost of that is right. I may have diffused the situation, but I've denied my needs. That's my voice. I've silenced like what I need from this situation, and all that has done is it's delayed it. You know, it's functionally dysfunctional because that person has dealt with the situation. They've got what they've wanted, but I haven't. But it's a survival strategy too. Maybe I seen that growing up. Maybe one of my parents might have learned that that's the quickest way to de-escalate a situation, is just to accept responsibility and say that they were sorry or that it was their fault. And then now in my adult relationships, I might not be able to hold people accountable, might not have boundaries. And, you know, when you start looking at relationship patterns over like multiple relationships, how you cope is going to be consistent because you haven't learned why that's not working. And for a lot of people, if they haven't had healthy boundaries modeled, you know, that's a game changer. That's everything.
Yeah. Roy, you were mentioning about relationship and about change. And you said that your current partner helped you go through some hard times in your life. And I was just wondering, would you say that first you gotta love yourself and then you will find your true love, or you can actually find your true love and then that person can help you love yourself?
I think so. I think like how do I want to answer this? I think like for a person that's not in a relationship, the most important thing to do is improve your relationship with yourself. Work on your own level of self-awareness. Actually define what it is you want from a relationship, what you want from a partner, like your deal breakers, your bottom lines. Also look at your expectations. Are they realistic? Are they unrealistic? You know, all these things. And then maybe actually work on getting comfortable in your own skin, getting comfortable in your own company. So then you're able to discern when you're looking at a relationship, am I clinging to it because I feel like I should be in a relationship, or is this person actually adding to my quality of life? Do I enjoy being around them? Do I love them for who they are? Or again, am I looking at this relationship from a different place of maybe settling? You know what I'm saying? Because when you get solid in your own space, you know, you're able to discern, is this for me? How does this person make me feel? How are they showing up for me? Whereas I think some people with relationships, when they're in them, they're so focused on the other person that they forget about themselves. You know? But for me, in my experience, like my relationship with my partner Lisa changed my whole life. Like it really, really did. You know, she really brought out the best in me. I had a massive level of trust. There was always safety. I never felt like there was any judgment. Like I can tell her anything and have told her everything. And that's it. Like for me, that level of honesty and transparency, and there like has been, everything was just laid on the table from the word go. You know, so I know that I've acted with integrity. She knows she's acted with integrity, and there is no room for assumption. And I think that's a big fuck up that a lot of people fall into, is that we assume rather than ask. And
Oh yeah.
Communication's everything for a relationship. Like, it is literally the oxygen of a relationship. And I think, like, with all this work too, I've learned to catch my own shit where I would have reacted in disempowering ways. And that's the thing. Like, now I try and stay present. I try and respond rather than react. And when I do fuck up, I have to take personal responsibility and hold my hands up straight away, because, like, we are human. We are going to slip up. But it's like, what are you going to do with this knowledge now? What I mean?
Very powerful.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, where does actually happy whole come from? Where did the concept how was it born actually, and what does it mean?
It's like, I'm kind of moving away from that name at the minute. I'm moving more towards my own name, but like, so it's kind of like slang from like the area where I grew up on. So like, my father would say, "Oh, there's grumpy hole," or whatever. Like, so without getting on that, like, I would say, "Oh, happy hole," but it's a play on words, because being happy and being whole is two objectives that we would like from life.
Yeah.
So that was it in the beginning, but as I say, outside of Ireland, like, it doesn't really make sense. So kind of moved away from that label at the minute, but it's still cool. It's like how people find me on Instagram, so it works that way.
Definitely. I was very curious about it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, Ruairi, we know that your expertise is just helping people avoid people-pleasing behavior. So just wanted to dive a bit deeper into this and just ask you, what is the first step someone can take to be more maybe aware that they are actually that, like, there is a people pleaser. There are a people pleaser.
So how this can show up, it's when you're not really being fully authentic and true to you. You know, if you feel that you have to wear a mask in order to fit in or belong, or you have to play a certain role around people, or you're always fixated on meeting everybody else's needs at the cost of your own. Now, people that do this, it can come from a place of love, but they can also carry tremendous resentment and guilt as well, because sometimes they're doing it because they don't feel that they have a choice. And that's the thing, like, you know, when we're doing this, they feel needed, or they feel connected, or they get praise or love, or they feel like we belong, then we're doing it because we're seeking validation, we're seeking connection and something bigger. But the thing is, like, when I begin working with someone, I have to try and get them to validate themselves. I have to get them to be true to themselves. So that means, like, not saying what they think they should say, but saying what they really feel, what they really think, you know, allowing themselves to take up space as they are, not as they think they should be. You know, which means rocking the fucking boat, being who you are, and not hiding that away, not dumbing yourself down or playing small, not asking people for permission before they act. You know, actually really standing true in who they are. And when that's all in alignment and you're letting that authentic self be seen, I think that is a good indication that you've moved away from people pleasing, because you're not doing it to see the needs of everybody else. Do you know what I mean?
You mentioned that this specific behavior comes from a place where we seek validation, and I can definitely relate, because I've been working on myself and my people-pleasing behavior for like 2 years now. And I remember that when I first became really aware of it was in a moment when it was work related, and I would deliver so much over the expectations that it was enough. But at the same time, I was still trying to get even more work on my side, just so that person is happy with my work, just so they say, "Oh my God, you're such an amazing guy. I love working with you." And that came from a place of I didn't see my worth in a way that I wanted them to see my worth, if that makes sense. So would you say that comes from like child trauma, or it comes from environment, or how is it developed that we become that people pleasing person?
Like, it can show up in so many different ways. It genuinely can, like, because I mean, if you say you take the family example that you gave there, depending on maybe how you learned to survive in your family, you could have been the good one, the reliable one, the go-to person. Like, you may have been encouraged by your parents to be selfless, to be the martyr, they always look after everybody else. You know, that might have been how you initially got praise or validation. Or, you know, we could take it from an academic perspective. Maybe you felt love every time you performed. So then when you
Yeah.
carry that into your adult life and you start delivering and over delivering, it's like, I need to do this, but maybe there's a disconnect on the why. And then we have to look at, like, what is this costing you? So you're saying, like, I know I've delivered the job, but I'm just not allowing myself. I have to do more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
But then I look at that from, what expectation is that creating then for your employer? That's the standard and the norm that you're setting, that this is the level that you're going to engage in.
Yeah.
And when you look at that in a relational aspect, if I keep showing up a certain way and I keep behaving a certain way, that becomes the norm in that dynamic.
Yeah.
So as soon as I start changing that, then everything else is in flux. We're all doing a different dance and everything has to readjust. And that's the thing that I think with people pleasers, they struggle with the most, is guilt. Guilt at putting themselves first, guilt at saying no, guilt at having boundaries. And like, a huge part of that is how they see themselves, their narrative, or, maybe struggling with the initial pushback, or at other people being disappointed or unhappy or angry. They're so focused on the other person being uncomfortable with their boundary or saying no, that stops them from doing it. And like, in my experience working with people that are maybe caught in a cycle of people pleasing, they have massive empathy. They have huge hearts, and they're fucking strong, because you need to be strong to be that empathetic.
Yeah.
People see it as a weakness, but it's not. It's like, you have to see how selfless a person can be, but you also have to look at it as a strategy. It's not leading you to have a degree of fulfillment in your life. You know what needs to change, but again, it's the execution. It's how are we going to do this? And like, as I say, I have to build them up. I have to challenge the narrative. I have to look at their beliefs and their rules, and what behavior was modeled growing up, so that they can see it. And then that's when that connection's made, and they'll go, right, I can't keep doing this, because if I keep doing this, this is the outcome I'm going to get.
And I think a big problem is also, you were mentioning that they have, once they recognize that, they are guilty for not being consistent. And I think it's human nature. Whenever we do something, whenever we start an activity, a relationship, a business, we are trying to be as consistent as possible. And therefore, if you started on the wrong foot, let's say, if you started with that guilty personality, pleasing behavior, and now you're like 6 months down the line in the relationship, you wouldn't feel right to yourself to actually try to change. And that the other person will be like, hold on a second, like, you started to change, and that wouldn't feel right.
The change is okay. Change is something that should be embraced, because you're not the same person you were 5 years ago. I'm certainly not. I know I'm not. But the thing is, like, within a relationship, again, it comes back to authenticity. Are you being true to you? Because if you're saying, like, I didn't show up authentically in the beginning, then 6 months down the line, now I need to change, that's not fair to them. That's an example, again, if your focus being fixated on them and not you. Because if it is a safe relational container, and they do come to a place where they'll understand why you need to change, and they respect you for you, then that is the line that they can meet you and you can meet them. Respect is held. Because like, if I'm people pleasing my whole life, and then I start implementing boundaries, I'm going to get tested. They're going to push back, because they need to know, am I serious about the things that I'm implementing and saying? If I don't stand over that, they have no incentive to respect me or change. But if I do, they can also tell me to go fuck myself. They might be like, I don't want to be in your life anymore. You're X, Y, and Z. But I can't control that. And that's the game. I can't control the other person. And I also cannot take responsibility for how they interpret my boundary. So that is another way that it'll falter your circle, because the people that truly respect you and will love you and will work with you will show up, and the people that won't. And that's where you have to park that level of guilt, because when I know where I stand with someone, I can be me. And that's the thing. Like, with your closest friends, you don't even have to think about it, because there's that mutual understanding that I've got you, like, I get what you need. We can be mutually respectful. But there's boundaries in place. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
definitely.
Totally agree. Ruairi, I've seen in your content that you're mentioning a lot that in order to actually just escape this cycle of people pleasing, you have to put yourself first in some situations, in almost all the situations. But my question is, should you put yourself first in your relationships as well? Let's say your romantic relationship, or with your friends or your family. Is the case with the relationship as well?
It's going to be content specific or context specific. It's too broad a question to make a generalization, because it literally depends on what's going on or what's happening. And again, you have to look at your motivation for, like, what needs to change. So again, it's not always about my needs trumps everybody else's needs. That's not what it's about. Like if I'm with my partner, like we're going to work to compromise, because it's not a case of I value myself more than I value her.
Yeah.
And when you take it from a family perspective, this is where it becomes a wee bit more intricate. So like there's a term known as enmeshment, and that's like where people are overly involved in your life. So say in your family dynamics, people have more input or more say, or they make you feel guilty for making decisions for yourself. You know, the de-enmeshing process is when you begin to say, look, as an adult and as my own autonomous and independent person, I have to make this decision for me because this is what feels right for me. So look, I'm maybe not going to be home for the holidays, or, you know, I'm not going to be there if, you know, people are being disrespectful or whatever it is. And it's not a case of I don't value that person or I don't love that person. It's like I need to establish boundaries in order for me to be valued and respected as well. But to your point, like within relationships, it will all come down to context. It'll come down to communication, and you have to work with the person. It's not like I'm going to just say, look, fuck you, I'm going to put myself first. It can't be like that, because then you're going to create that cycle of resentment.
Yeah.
It's like it is very, very context specific, you know.
I think we sidetracked a bit from the actionable steps. So can you go back to that and actually tell our audience the actionable steps that they should be doing once they find themselves in that situation?
So what I tend to focus on, like, it's about being true to yourself initially, right? Are you expressing yourself in an authentic way? Are you saying what you really think and feel? Right? Are you being true to yourself? You're not fixating on the other person, how they're going to react or how they're going to interpret what you're saying. Now, that doesn't mean be tactless, but it means don't be editing yourself or holding yourself back. You know, are you asking for what you want? Are you allowing yourself to rock the boat? Are you communicating openly and freely? You know, a large part of that is about actually being in alignment with yourself and what you want, not what you think you should want, but actually tuning into you. In terms of people pleasing, what's difficult about this is you have to look at where this is showing up, how it's showing up, and what your fear is around actually creating change. The big one for a lot of people isn't saying no, and it's maybe going to a place of over explaining themselves or feeling they have to justify their no. And the thing is, like, your no's your no. That's it. Like, I'm not saying you need to be fucking ignorant, but your no is your no. And like with people pleasing, it nearly feels like, oh, it needs to be like a completely mad situation for me to say no, and I have to explain it, and then I'll make it up to them, and it's like, oh, I feel terrible because I let them down. And it's like, look, you are a valuable, worthwhile human being, and you need to attend to the self. You can't give what you don't have for other people, because you'll eventually become burned out and resentful. And it's like having that awareness of how you're feeling, how this situation is impacting on you. And if you have the space, do you truly want to do this? Or are you doing it because you think you should? Or are you doing it because you want them to validate you? You know what I mean? And it's like learning to know your worth, validating yourself, looking at your strengths and your skills, and not selling yourself short. And it's like also being authentic, and like, so like I'm not on this like football. It's like if I'm sitting with a group of fellas and they're all talking about football, and I start like on that I like football or understand football, I'm not being true to me. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not going to hold that side of myself back. I have to allow myself to be who I am. So like in them scenarios, I'll talk about what I like. I'm not going to put myself off, because then it's not congruent, and they can't connect with me because I'm not being myself. The thing is, like, again, that'll filter your circle, because the people on that, if you're on the frequency and vibration, like when you're being true to yourself, you're going to have that brought into your life.
Exactly.
You're going to come to, and that's actionable, but it's hard, especially if you spent your whole life wearing a mask. And like, I can totally relate to that. I was stuck in shoulds for years, and as soon as I say like I should, I'm putting a judgment on myself straight away. And like, I have to weigh it up. How do I feel? Is this what I want? And what is my motivation for doing this? And then I can check myself. And if it is something that I truly want to do and I do care about the person, then I am going to do it, even if it might inconvenience me. But I know my motivation is pure. It's not coming from a place to be seen. It's not coming from a place to be validated or needed. It's because I actually want to. So my yeses and nos have to be aligned. That's the big one.
You heard, Ruairi, guys. It all got to start with your own motivation and why you actually want to do that thing in the first place. And then going back full circle is you got to be authentic to yourself, to your true self. And then from there, you got to obviously put a lot of work in, because it doesn't happen overnight.
Like, and again, if we come back to the family of origin stuff, like a lot of that stuff's from childhood that we carry into our adult life. And like, if we don't speak to somebody? How are we going to get that awareness around what needs to change? Even our beliefs and our rules and what we expect from others. Is that all my stuff, or did I get that from my parents? You know, where did I get that from?
Yeah.
Why do I expect these things? And is what I'm expecting even healthy? What do I expect of myself? Is that even healthy? You know, these are all things that need to be explored.
Yeah, Rory, totally agree. Just wanted to change a little bit the subject and go a bit more personal, and just wanted to ask you, what experience are you most grateful for so far?
What experience am I most grateful for? Meeting my partner. Honestly, like that genuinely changed my life. Like I've had a lot of amazing experiences in my life, but that I've been able to experience so much and actually take a lot from it because of who I'm sharing my life with mainly. And it could be anything. Like I genuinely spend a lot of time laughing with my partner. We get on really well. And it's like I want other people to have that experience and that connection and feel like valued, loved, and respected and appreciated, because I see people in relationships and like they know that they don't want to be in that fucking relationship and they're so afraid of letting it go because maybe they're in their 30s or their mid 30s and like, oh, what if I don't meet anybody else? And it's like I'm so terrified of being alone. And like, you know, I'm solid in who I am. And if my relationship ended, I would be devastated, but I know it would be okay. I know it would be okay because I've worked hard at myself. But I'm also at a place where I'm fucking eternally grateful for having had that relationship because of what it's taught me. You know, and it's a lot about safety, it's a lot about love, it's a lot about respect, and you know, she adds to my life in every single way. I can't explain it any better than that. You know.
No, that's more than enough. I know that everybody has their own things that they are trying to work on, but I'm just wondering, what's one thing about yourself that you are working on and that you would like to change?
That I would like to change. Sometimes I'm too hard on myself, and I catch that, like, because I know even in my professional work, like, I have mentors that work with me, and that's something that comes up a lot. I hold myself to very high standards, very high expectations, and it's how I keep myself accountable. Like, I'm always learning, I'm always investing in myself, and my motivation is to serve. I want to make an impact with the people that I'm working with, and you know, if that means I have to keep learning, I have to keep researching. If that's going to give me the key to unlock something for somebody, then that's enough for me. But sometimes I just keep myself at a place where I expect more than what's healthy. Where maybe I feel like I could be looking at it like if you're taking on a rescuer's role, where maybe you want it more than the other person, and you're frustrating yourself because it's like, and that's learning for me in that regard. So maybe working on my expectations of self. That's something that I know that I have to actively do. But what else would I change about myself? It's a good question. I wish I had prepared it a wee bit more. I don't know. I think like what I just said, like about expectations, that's something that catches me a lot.
Would you say that if you would spend more time, I would say just doing something else than what you usually do, like for work, and just I don't know, maybe going more often to vacations or just spending more time with your family would help you stop being that hard with yourself, or is this something different?
It's just catching it when it comes up. You know, it's like, again, back to that awareness. Like, you can have all the awareness, but you need to implement you have to practice what you preach. So for me, it's like I have to realize I'm not an exception. And when this comes up, I have to sit with it. I have to challenge it. And like, I suppose one thing that I do know that I definitely need to work a wee bit more on is self-care. And it's just making time to attend to the self. Because especially when you're working in an environment where you're witnessing pain, like you pay a price, you take a lot of stuff emotionally, and like that's something that I've noticed that I need to prioritize. So like I do gratitude every day, I do visualization every day, I try and meditate every day. I'm on the holistic kind of practices, so I do Reiki every now and again. I have friends that like help me out with like physical therapy and adjustments and stuff. Like I'm very fortunate in that regard, but I know if I don't make time for those things, I can't serve, I can't help people, and I'm no good to myself even. And that,
100%.
you know, and as I say, like the gym is such a good self-care for me because when I'm fully present, I'm not even thinking about anything else.
I don't want to go into very much detail, but if you could give our audience an understanding of how and why they should actually start meditating, because recently I've been on a podcast myself as a guest, and I was mentioning meditation, and the person was like, "Yes, I know, but it's not really for me." And I was like, "It's not like it is or it is not for you. It's like with exercising. No one says that you should be doing a 10 days retreat where you don't do anything but just meditate, but like 10 minutes a day, I would say that it's applicable and useful to everyone, right?"
Yeah, it's transformative. So the way I look at it, it gives you a good baseline of where you're at and yourself, and it allows me to feel grounded. And if I feel grounded, then I'm then aware of any fluctuations in my emotional state throughout the day. And like I don't have to be shit hot at meditating. I just have to allow myself that space to go inwards, to focus on my breath, to just observe my thoughts, observe my state. And it's just time for me. And if I come out of that very calm and very focused, and I can start my day on that note, then it's a good likelihood that that'll be a good day. And I don't have to do it every day, but if I get into the habit of doing it every couple of days, I'm also getting my body more relaxed. You're activating your parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
So, like, there's so many health benefits, but even from, like, again, we go to a therapeutic perspective, when you're able to go inwards, when you're able to like ground yourself and become aware of your thoughts, that is everything. When you're looking at changing the narrative, you need to catch the thoughts in order to know what they are. So like if you have a thought, oh, he thinks I'm fucking stupid, or he doesn't respect me, or whatever it is, if you have that awareness to catch the thought, you can then challenge it.
Yeah.
So meditation also helps in that regard, and that's why we have some combined blended therapies now with like mindfulness with CBT. They've done so much research, even with like brain imaging, and how meditation can be beneficial and stuff like so. And even like I don't know if he's around the Wim Hof with breath work and stuff, like it's just phenomenal for your body. Like there's no reason not to meditate. And I think it's just allowing yourself to be a complete beginner and just try it. There's literally no reason not to.
It's a very good way to look at it. Give me just 1 second. I need to charge my laptop.
I always feel amazing when I'm in a good routine with meditation.
Yeah, same. I was telling Bogdan like a month ago or a month and a half, we were at the seaside, and I was like, I really need to get back on meditation because I've been slacking and I can feel it. Whenever I'm not meditating for like more than a week, I start feeling like different emotional waves, and the way I react and the way I perceive everything is more negative.
You just become more judgmental.
It's just because you're not really. That's the only way I can explain it is I don't feel grounded. That's the only word I can use. When I feel grounded, then I feel like I'm in a better place of awareness, even catching myself. But like my quality of sleep, how I look at situations, I'm less likely to react. I'm more likely just to observe it. And it's crazy because it's just something that it's when I have that daily practice, or even if I do it in the evening, like you have no idea what's going to come up. So like even when you're meditating, something could come up for you to look at that needs to be healed. That's the way I look. Yeah. So like it's amazing. Like I mean, meditation is just one of them things. Like I think if everybody had a good teacher and good experiences with it, they would see the value of it. And with the internet, like you've access to so many amazing teachers. Like I only met him like a few years ago, and it was probably the best thing I ever did. Like it was.
Same to me. For our audience listening, you can look into people like Dr. Joe Dispenza, the guy that wrote The Power of Now. Alan Watts again has a good meditation.
It's very good. Michael Singer. Have you read The Untethered Soul?
No.
Very good. My partner's reading the Zoller book, The Surrender Experiment. That's very good. I think you would both enjoy that as well.
Yeah, definitely we'll check it out. Guys, if you're not meditating yet, I mean, now you have all the reasons Rory just mentioned them to start doing it. Just wanted to ask you, Rory, what are the things that you want to be remembered for?
I think like the most important thing for me is when I know that I can see the clients that I've worked with and they're happy, and I know that they've made the changes that they were looking for, and like that's everything to me. When I see clients on day one and I see them whatever length of time later and they've set boundaries, or they've changed careers, or that they're fucking confident in their own skin, that's everything to me. Like, I mean,
Mm.
again, when I think about it from personal training, like, we look at the motivation of why we go to the gym. We want to look a certain way, but ultimately we want to feel a certain way. We want to be comfortable in who we are. But I think, like, on a deeper level, when we're looking at it in terms of self-acceptance, that's everything to me. Like, if I can get a person to be comfortable to say no, to say this is who I am, I'm not going to edit myself, I'm not going to hold myself back and play small. That's everything.
Mm.
Get them to actually step into their power. That's everything for me. If I throughout the course of my career can help enough people to do that, that's enough for me. That's everything. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I really love to hear people just saying that they get that satisfaction, that happiness from actually helping others, because nowadays it's so rare, and when you just find someone who is actually talking freely about that, it's just a pleasure, and I just wanted to acknowledge you for that.
oh, thank you. Like, no, it's everything. Like, as I say, when I look at work, there has to be a level of impact for it to be meaningful for me. Because always, like, we can all get on under the rat race. We can all focus on things that we think we're
Exactly.
material value, but like, when you've made a really positive, genuine impact on another human being, it's hard not to take pride in it. Like, I mean, again, gym metaphor, if somebody's dropped 4 or 5 stone, but you see the way they're holding themselves, how they're looking at themselves, it's not about the weight, it's about the shift and how they see themselves. That's powerful stuff. Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like to always mention about, at least about my particular transformation with my body, that the physical transformation was just a side effect. Like, the actual transformation was inside. Like, you can't really see the actual transformation, and it's definitely way more applicable with what you do with your clients.
it's, as I say, like, it's amazing stuff. But I mean, it highlights everything I was saying earlier, even within that environment that you're talking about. Relationships are everything. If you have a great relationship with the people that you're training with, or if you have your own mentors or trainers, you're so much more invested in it. And like, they take a lot of pride in seeing you transforming. But like, what you've noticed in yourself, like, you can't, like, the value in that alone is mind blowing. You know what I mean? And as I say, like, if I get a message from someone and they're like, I was finally able to set that boundary or leave that job, or, they've done the thing that they were afraid of. That's everything. That is fucking amazing. There's no other way to look at it. Like,
Yeah, it's beautiful. Ruairi, as much as we like to keep going on and on, I'm definitely sure that we could be talking for another 2 hours easily. I want to be aware of your time and our audience time. So it's just time to wrap up. So I'm going to just address you the last question of the show. Take your time answering it. So it goes this way. Imagine you are on your deathbed. You are just about to die. There's no pain involved. You know that you are just reaching the end of your journey, and you get to see the best version of yourself, the person that possibly you could have become. How would you feel in that particular moment, seeing yourself, and how would you feel about your life that you lived in that moment?
I get to see the best version of myself.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting question, because that's something that keeps me grounded every single day, is looking at, if the best version of myself showed up tomorrow and it was 10 years in the future and they'd asked me, like, what the fuck are you doing with yourself right now? I try and put in that intentional place. So to your answer, I would like to think on my deathbed, I would be going out with no regrets, because I've lived from that place of being true to myself. I want to know that I've done everything that was on my gas tank to help and serve. And, the people that were in my life felt loved, heard, seen, appreciated, and respected, and, that they're all fulfilled. And if I'm in that place, I'm going out happy. Like, it doesn't really matter, and I don't think I'm going to be waiting for another version of me to come in, because if I'm living from that place of service, then I'm doing everything I need to be doing.
It's very powerful.
Yeah, I really love it. Because, like you said, you just have to live a life with no regrets, because there is always more that you can do. And if you really think about it, you could always have done something that, I don't know, you could have benefit more from any other situation. But you just got to be thankful for who you are, because the situations, the hard situations, and maybe the moments that you think that they were bad for you, or you didn't do enough, were the moments that actually help you transform and become the person that you are today.
That's the thing. Like, when, we go through stuff and it changes who we are, and yet we're so afraid of change, but we're always changing. Life's always changing. We're always adapting. And the thing is, like, as long as we have that idea of what we're moving towards and how we want to show up and the impact that we want to have, then you're living from a place of integrity. Do you know what I mean? If you're constantly working on yourself like that, you can't really control much more than that. You really can't. And I think I've kind of lost my words now. But it's like that's up to me. You know what I mean? And kind of stuck.
Definitely. Ruairi, it was an absolute pleasure. I'm more than certain that the audience that sticked around has definitely enjoyed everything we talked about, and hopefully they took a lot on board, things that they can actually apply in their own lives. But now is the time for you to show any resources from yourself, the services that you provide. If you have any open spots, just bear in mind that this podcast is probably going to be launched end of January next year, early February. So keep that in mind.
It's cool. Like, I mean, I give a lot of free resources away on my Instagram and social media. Don't be afraid to send messages. You know, can get links to book calls and just have a chat about what's going on. But I mean, there's a lot of material that I put out for free. And if it resonates with you, just share it with somebody, because I get messages all the time. And sometimes they just need to see something to make them think about where they're at in their own relationship. And you know, if that's enough for that person to make a change, then that's brilliant. You know, that's it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Are you going to change your Instagram handle by next year?
No.
But
no, so like, I mean, the happy whole coach right now, in a way, it'll be cool.
Awesome. So it's definitely going to be linked down into the description, and all the other resources will be down in the description. And with that said, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for spreading awareness upon this subject. And yeah, thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me on. Hey, it was a pleasure.
Cheers.
Yeah, thank you so much for hearing, guys. And till the next time, stay grateful. Take care.